Ambiguity in the Milton Model. This video is about ambiguity in the Milton Model. However, it could be said that the Milton Model itself is all about ambiguity. So here I'm going to focus on 4 different types of ambiguity in this model. I'm taking the meaning of ambiguity to be the ability to be understood in more than one way. So whatever is said can be understood in more than one way. And what this means, why is this a good idea? It means that the client has to process 2 or more possible meanings and decide which one is relevant. So the client has to go inside to consider their own deeper experience in order to find what is an appropriate answer when the point being said has more than one meaning. So the client then is able to find their own meaning and consider more possibilities than previously, thus opening up their choices. In this video, as I said, I'll describe 4 types of ambiguity with 1 or 2 examples of each one. These 4 types are phonological, syntactic, scope, and punctuation. Phonological, syntactic, scope, and punctuation. With regard to phonological, this is where the words sound the same but have different meanings. There's a really good shop near us in Bristol called Back in Action, and I think that name, that title of the shop is just an excellent example of phonological ambiguity, because the sorts of chairs and furniture and even shoes that are sold in the shop are the sort that get your back moving. And then, of course, also you get back into action if you have been stiff or in pain. I mean, it contains so many interesting meanings that I noticed that it makes it very attractive for me. So for me, that's a good example of phonological. A couple of others are something like this. Here we are, can you hear the sea? So I'm using the double meaning of here and here. But the effect it has on me, I don't know what effect it has on you, but the effect it has on me is it really focuses my attention on my hearing and on being present with my hearing by the use of those 2 meanings of hear. So another example of this is it's peaceful, and all the pieces of the puzzle can come together now. So we're talking about peace, peacefulness, and pieces, that is little bits. So it's peaceful, and because it's peaceful, all the pieces of the puzzle can come together. So that's just 3 examples of phonological ambiguity. There are many. When you start to think about this, you will think of many, because actually it's the source of much comedy, particularly British comedy. So you'll probably notice it in that context as well now. I mean, that's another thing that it does, is it makes us laugh. The double meanings of things can also make us laugh. Then there is syntactic. And this is where people use unusual pauses, rambling and incomplete sentences, so that the client has to make it up a bit and guess what is being meant. Now, if they have to guess, that means they have to search inside and find their own meaning again. So that was an unusual pause. I'll just, I mean, if I just pause when you're not expecting it, so you're forced to go inside. Something happens, what's she doing? I wonder what's coming next. Something happens. So I think the use of pausing in this area is very well, as are those rambling sentences. Those rambling sentences where sometimes people just go on and on and on about something, and you find yourself drifting off. Now, depending on what they're saying, possibly drifting off somewhere quite useful to be able to consider something important about your life. I know I've talked about my mum before, but my mum was a master of the rambling and incomplete sentences. Especially if she was a bit cross about something, she'd sort of look and say, "Do you not know about?" She'd say, "Do you not know about?" And that was the end of the sentence, and it was for the person listening to complete whatever failing they had or whatever it was that they didn't know about, because she wasn't going to say. She just stopped the sentence halfway. So what we're talking about there is we're talking about syntactic ambiguity. There's a famous example from Milton Erickson that's often quoted, which is where he says, "speaking to you as a child." And that's interesting because it is unclear whether Milton Erickson is the child or the child is the client. But either way, the client is searching inside and recovering childhood experiences, speaking to you as a child. Then there is scope. There is scope, and scope is where the scope of what is being discussed is uncertain. So I'll give you a couple of examples of these. So for example, one that I quite like is, "Why don't you come over when you have nothing on?" It's quite nice, isn't it? Why don't you come over when you have nothing on? Or obviously the scope is unclear. Or sometimes you might hear something like, "They are walking dogs." And then we don't know whether the people are dog walkers or the dogs are walking. We don't know who's walking, and we don't really know who they are. And so we're confused, and we don't know quite what pictures to make inside our minds if the scope is unclear. And as I said, often this is a source of humour. One thing I found when I was preparing for this video that I quite liked was a sign outside a factory where it said, "New recruits wanted for pickling and bottling, apply within." And so that's an example of that use of humour, because we are unclear what's being talked about. And then there is punctuation. Number 4 is punctuation ambiguity, sometimes described as Siamese sentences. And I'll just explain to you how this works. Basically, there are 2 sentences, could be divided into 2 separate sentences, but the last word of the first sentence becomes the first word of the next sentence. So I'll just tell it to you in an example. So, in addition to a watch, a man may wear a tie in this idea to the others that came before. I'll just say that again. The pause before the final word, the word tie, final word of the sentence, is important. So, in addition to a watch, a man may wear a tie in this idea to the others that came before. Or another example is, "I love going to the sea. What pictures you get when I say the word holiday." So sometimes they're described as Siamese sentences, that is 2 sentences joined. And the pivot words like tie or see are useful if they're a noun or a verb, that is, they can be used as a noun or a verb. And so we have examples like here, here, no or no, change, break, move, experience or respect. These are useful kind of pivot words. So I've explained 4 different types of ambiguity. My suggestion would be that they're all used with the zetetic rigor model in mind, that is to recover information and generate experiential richness. And I hope this has given some suggestions about how that could be done with ambiguity. If you like this video, please like it. Please feel free to comment or ask a question, and I'd love it if you subscribed. Thank you.